is the same word. I'm thinking about a bone disease where you lose density in elderly people. Osteoporosis. Now, make your word for the cell. Osteocyte. Ding, ding, you made it. Okay, just that simple. Osteocyte. So, the question is, are there cells in bone? Sure there are. They're called osteocytes, and yes, they're quite there. Okay, good. Blood also has those, and you know them. What do we say when we do a blood test? We're interested in some tissue, some cell populations in the blood, like what? Leukocytes, good, or white blood cells, and we always call them white and red, don't we, and platelets? You've heard of those before? But now we're going to have to learn their hard names, and I just heard them. The white blood cell is called a leukocyte, good. And that's a WBC, and I'm going to give you credit for the hard word, okay? The hard. Leuko actually means white, and cyte means cell, okay? So the white blood cell. And I'm doing this because, of course, if you're talking about the disease leukemia, now you know it's a cancer of what particular cell in the blood?
White.
The white blood cells, okay? Good, so that's a great way to learn it, okay? Red blood cells are called erythrocytes. Okay, red blood cells are called erythrocytes. And then, of course, we've got our last little friend, which are the platelets, and they are called the thrombocytes. Those are the platelets. Okay, so leukocytes, erythrocytes, and thrombocytes. So now we can check off. They've both got cells, so they're both in the legal category. Okay? All right? Well, bone has fibers that are rope-like. Can you name what kind of fiber they have? They're rope-like. They're collagen. You got it. So they got collagen fibers. And this one's kind of hard because blood, if it had fibers in it, what would it constantly do? Blood's supposed to be what? Like, it's supposed to be flowing, like fluid, right? Like a creek. If a creek has a bunch of sticks and things like that, doesn't it create obstructions, right? So that's kind of weird that it would have fibers in it. It does have fibers, but only at a certain time. Like when you break a blood vessel, you better hope that it stops bleeding because it forms a what to make the blood stop from coming out? A clot. So it does have fibers, but they are clotting fibers. And they only show up when you need a clot. Okay, they only show up when you need a clot. So the clotting fibers. All right, the ground substance, let's go to blood first. What's the most prominent part of blood? It's the fluid that all the stuff is floating in, right? What do we call that fluid?
Water.
It is mostly water. Plasma, that's the big word. Okay, so plasma makes up the ground substance. That's what all the cells and the fibers are floating around in. And then in the ground substance of bone are calcium salts. So, and that's primarily, after somebody is not alive anymore and their bone is found, okay, or animal bone is found, that's mostly what animal bone is left. The organic part, cells and fiber, are no longer there anymore. It's just the calcium salts. Kind of like, almost like a china plate is what's left behind. So, calcium salts then are the ground substance that holds it all together. Plasma holds all of the blood together, and there's your short answer question on the lab test or the lecture exam. It's a lecture exam question, right? Okay, so now what are we going to do for the lab test though? We might as well go ahead and identify bone and blood, because now we've got it discussed so well. We're ready to look at it underneath the microscope, and bone is really cool. How would you say it looks?
Looks like a tree.
Doesn't it look like tree rings? Exactly what it looks like. It looks just like tree rings, okay? Just like tree rings. And if you're identifying it on your page here, let's go to this page right here, second page of this guide, right? We were moving around a lot. I have extras of these too. They're over here on the lab table if anybody needs them. Can you find it out of these 6 slides right here? Which one's bone? Good. The first one, like G. Is that right? There's bone. Now, if you write bone on the lab test, you won't get full credit. You get 1 point instead of 2 because you didn't give me its full name. bone is its nickname and you don't know anybody that well, you better be polite and give its full name, okay? So bone belongs to what tissue family? What did we just say? It belongs to who? Good. So you have to call it bone connective tissue. Give its full name. Bone connective tissue. You want to give its full name, okay? Because you're doing this whole short answer question. Why does it belong to that family, right? So give its full name. Bone connective tissue. All right? Good. Now, we're also going to look, there's no line drawing of blood, but let me give you the blood slide that I have. It's really cool looking, if I can find this amidst all the slides that I have here. Here it is. Good. So, perfect question right on the test. Let's go to this slide over here. You already named that as squamous tissue. Let's go over here. And now name this tissue. You are looking at human blood. That's blood. Okay? That's a picture of your blood. Okay, so now name this tissue. The answer becomes what? Name the whole thing. Blood what?
Blood
connective tissue. Its full name. Its first name is blood. Its last name is connective tissue. Great. And now we know that there are cells in blood, aren't there? There's cells in blood, right? So which one is which? The purpley ones. What are the purpley ones? Are they white leukocytes? Are they red blood cells, erythrocytes, or are they platelets?
Platelets?
Hard one, isn't it? I'll let you know. The white blood cells are the biggest cells in the blood. So what does that tell you? They're white blood cells, exactly. So the question to the left there, pointing at these two purple things that look like they got funny looking shapes. Look at their nuclei, aren't they weird? They're so weird looking, aren't they? So that's a white blood cell, and that's a white blood cell. But that's not what you're going to say on the test, right? You're going to call it by its hard name. The hard name is what? Leukocyte. Awesome. Okay, good. So these are both leukocytes. But look at all these weird little pale, little red, pink guys. Do they have any nuclei in them at all?
Mm-hmm.
They don't. Remember that the red blood cell does not have a nucleus. We called it anucleate, didn't we? Called it anucleate. So there's no at all nucleus in any of these guys. So this arrow right here is pointing to, and you have this handout, don't you? You guys have this one I handed out tonight. Okay, I know you're juggling handouts tonight. So that's a what? That's a red blood cell, but what's its fancy name? Erythrocyte. Awesome. Erythrocyte is the hard word, right? So we want to use this word right here for that, name that cell erythrocyte right there. All right, and I don't think you have to name a thrombocyte on the lab test, do you? I think it's just erythrocyte. What does it say on your lab test? What did your mean instructor make you do? Oh my gosh, she made you do a thrombocyte. She's so mean. Okay, so here it is right here. Do you see these little tiny, look at these little guys. See how little they are? That's one right there. That's one right there blurred. Here's one right here. Platelets are really just chips of cells. They don't have a nucleus or anything. It's a cell that kind of fell apart. They're really pretty cool. And we'll learn about them all next semester, but that would be an example. Those tiny little chips would be examples of thrombocytes. Okay, thrombocytes. All right, and I'm sorry I didn't point one out, but there you go. Okay, so we've got erythrocytes, leukocytes, platelets, or thrombocytes, I'm sorry. Now name this tissue. What would you say on the lab test? Blood what? Connective tissue. Good. Give its full name for full credit. Excellent. Okay, so there we go. So that's blood and that's bone. One more thing. Oops. Nope. One more thing about naming. Here it is. What is this tissue right here? Name number 7. Name this tissue.
Bone connective
Bone.
tissue.
Excellent. What else do you have to name about bone that it says on the lab test? And I don't think you have this handout. Unfortunately, this is one that's online, so you don't have this one. But I think you can name them pretty easily once it's keyed up. All right, so you're going to say name this tissue. You say bone connective tissue. You already know that. But notice that it has these little tiny things that almost look like little black spots in the rings. Can you see them, those black spots? Okay. So you have to tell me where the osteocytes are in bone. So if I point at one of these, in fact, that line right there, see this line, is pointing at one. The bottom line is pointing at an osteocyte. Now, bone is hard or not hard? Hard or soft? It's hard, isn't it? Okay? So these little cells, they don't have much space to live inside of bone. So the bone cells themselves, let's say this is a bone cell here, and it lives in a space inside of bone. This is the space. That's the osteocyte. And that's the space it lives in. The space has a special name. The space is named the lacuna. I always say it sounds like a lagoon. Like it's a little secret place, like a lagoon would be a little secret place. It rhymes with that, but the word itself, I can't help you any more than, it's just called lacuna. That's the space inside of bone where cells live, okay, where the cells live. So how would I ask you this question on a test? Here it is. Name the cell at the pointer tip. Cell. I'm asking for cell. Now what do you say? It's an osteocyte. Just that simple. You named it right. It's an osteocyte, okay? The other question could be, name the space that the cell is living in. And then you'd say what? Lacuna. Okay, and we'll see it again in cartilage in just a minute. It'll be easier. Okay, you'll see it in just a second in cartilage. Okay, so there's bone and there's blood. Well, what other types of connective tissues are there? Well, let's go to the line drawings first because this will help you. Let's go to these line drawings, these right here. We need to name these two on the bottom down here. It'll make it easier for us to learn them. Do you remember the one that has a bunch of fibers in it? It's so cute, all those little fibers right there. It's just like little hairs, right? I always think that it looks like it's real airy. I don't know if that helps you at all, but that is areolar connective tissue. To me, it looks really airy. Not that that really helps you. And that's letter what? Which one are we looking at? E. Good, letter E on that first page is areolar connective tissue. Areolar connective tissue. Now, what does it really look like for real? Well, I showed it to you just a second ago, and it looks like, yes, there it is. So there it is right there, areolar connective tissue. Does it look airy to you? Let me tell you what this tissue is for, maybe it'll help you, okay? If I worked for UPS or FedEx and I had to make sure that the body was well packed, I would love this tissue. It would be my favorite tissue. The number one word we're going to associate with this word on the test, this tissue, is packing. It's a great packing tissue. Pack it around organs, pack it around things that you want to make sure you keep safe. Okay, it's a great packing tissue. So areolar connective tissue. Now, what are these representing again? These little dark staining structures must be the what of the whats? Those are the nuclei of the cells. You have to know the cells that make up areolar connective tissue. What's their names? Areolar connective tissue. Can you see it right there on your practical page? They're called fibroblasts. Fibroblasts. Okay? So the cells that make up, let me write that down. The cells, we have to know the cells, right? So areolar